Hello, everybody. It's Dovey. Bit of a different vlog this time. Not a weekly update. Something that I'd like to talk about that's been on my mind just with events on and off the internet the past while. And it's not something. It's something that I haven't talked about on its own, and it's something I think is very important. Um, and that's really how we treat each other. There's been a lot that's been going on in the world, like I said, on and off the internet, political, socioeconomic, um, the shootings and politics and religious infighting and external fighting. And there's something I've been talking about with a few people that it just bears repeating, and it's something that needs to go to as wide an audience as possible, and that is, people are not your enemies. And that's a very basic statement. I'll expand on it. But the simple thing is, your fellow people are not your enemies. What I mean by this is that everything that is important, that people care about, that people fight for, not fight over, or they fight over, but that people fight for a while now, but very recently as well, has just been boiled down to us versus them. It's, the good guys, me, and the bad guys, the villains, the evil people, them. And when you take something that's important to you, something like civil rights or your life or your religion or anything, and sorry for the computer, and you boil the conflict down to good versus evil, then you completely close off any ability for there to be a compromise, any ability for you to be able to resolve something with any sort of community or camaraderie or anything. Once you've decided that your position is the just and good and right thing to do, and that the other side is evil, then there's no way for you to resolve the situation. You're just going to keep fighting because the other side sees it the exact same way. And when you're so set in that mindset, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you'll be able to do to get yourself out of that and to find some way to make a solution that everybody is able to tolerate and handle. And this is, again, just something that's all over the place, whether it's the recent talks of gun control or all the problems that people have had cropping up with the current administration in the U.S., or completely outside of your realm, but people people that I've seen that in the Jewish spheres that are fighting over the rights of various individuals and where that falls within the normative processes. Again, it's not going to make sense to you, but it's something that I'm part of. It all boils down to people entrenching themselves in their position and deciding that they are right and to hell with everyone else. And it's not healthy, because there's no way to get out of that. If you decide that let me back up a little. You are not always correct. I know it's very hard to listen to, and it's very hard to believe, because, you're an informed person, you tell yourself, and You feel very strongly about the issue, therefore what you feel is correct. I've felt that a lot myself, and sometimes you are correct, but other times you're not. There are times that people are correct, and people that you disagree with can be correct. Maybe they're not 100% correct, maybe you're not 100% wrong, but there's still a percentage. And if you don't allow the fact that that percentage exists, then you're going to get nowhere in your life. Because then it's just going to be you. And it's not going to be the other person. And you're just going to fight. And it's just going to be a war of attrition. And look where we are. Look where we are as a country. Look where we are just as a stalemate, as the world is a whole thousands and millions of people all deciding that the other side is wrong and they are right, and there is no middle ground. And we're just heading for disaster. Whether it's going to be some sort of war or something, or revolution within the people or whatever, the disaster doesn't have to be a physical one. It's just there's no community. It's horrible. When you've decided that everybody else is evil around you, then there's just hate. There's no way that you can find some way. Maybe you are correct, but by deciding that the other people are evil, there's no way to even try to talk to them. There's no way to try to convince somebody of your position if you've decided that it's turned into a battle of good versus evil, that it's no longer a battle of opinions or a battle of ideals, whether the ideals are misguided or not. Once you've decided that somebody is evil, then there's nowhere to go from there. There's no way to stop it. It just becomes a cycle of hate. And obviously the big example in this country is liberals versus conservatives, or Republicans versus Democrats, or wherever you want to draw the distinction there. It's for years now we've gone nowhere, and for a very long time you could say we've gone nowhere. If you want to look back in politics, without rose-colored glasses, we've gone nowhere for a very long time, with very little changes here and there, all because the very vocal players, and there's a lot of people that you look up to and a lot of people that I look up to that fall into the same traps, where they feel so strongly that the other side becomes the villains, and then the other side, whichever side the other side is, has to fight back equally as hard to maintain their convictions, and then they have to see it in the same terms that you do, which is the black and white terms that shouldn't exist. And once again, we get nowhere. We get nowhere as a people, and even within your smaller community circles, if we want to step back from the bigger picture that most people have been throwing their hands up and saying, I'm not part of this anyway, or despairing of even part of it, just the closer knit groups that we're all part of, we're destroying ourselves, and we're destroying our friendships, we're destroying family ties, which two of the most important things for human beings to work together in a sense of community. We're destroying all of this by taking all of our ideals and using them as weapons against other people. And it's sickening. We're just it's going to be a disaster. In the Jewish tradition, we talk about the temples that we had approximately 2,000 and 2,500 years ago, first and second Jewish temples in Jerusalem, where that was where God dwelt. Both of them were destroyed by outside forces, but we have it passed down that it wasn't because of a necessary military defeat or just the better army coming along, because over the course of many hundreds of years, the Jews have had a lot of miraculous victories during those times, during the existence of the temples, where foreign armies that were just plowing through everything else were suddenly halted. The story of Hanukkah is one of them, where the Jews somehow defeated the Syrian Greeks, somehow, that were taking over the entire rest of the world. But no, they gained their independence through that during the Second Temple period. But that was all thanks to the strength of God. And the reason why God took his presence away and allowed everything to be destroyed was because everyone just started infighting. There was a terrible amount of political infighting, and everyone just started disrespecting each other. There was no unity amongst the people, and we were defeated, the temple was destroyed, we were exiled to all the corners of the world. If you want to take a non-religious moral out of this, is that when the people there were united in a single purpose, they definitely had very different viewpoints on a lot of different things. They were still fighting about a lot of other stuff, but they were united in wanting to keep their land and to work together towards that goal, while fighting in other things. But so once they once they had that, they were unstoppable. Nothing could budge them. But once the cracks formed, where people started, just trying to one-up each other, nobody was able to do anything, that's when everything fell apart. That's when, the Jews were exiled, and everything was destroyed by the Romans and or earlier the Babylonians. It was all because everybody just ended up hating each other, and for no good reason. If somebody legitimately deserves hate, that's one thing, but to just mark somebody as evil because of their own personal viewpoint that they think is right is wrong. Again, this is a lot of people are going to bring in Dovey, what about the Nazis or this or that? Yeah, okay. This is a separate discussion for what exactly a Nazi is, but the actual Nazis, yes, that was the wrong viewpoint, and they were evil. But we're not talking about that. Not everybody's a Nazi. I know that's tough to believe. Not everybody is a Nazi. Not everybody is your enemy. There are so many people I know with so many different viewpoints and so many different strong viewpoints that if they saw anybody of any faith or persuasion or orientation or whatever, fall down and start having a seizure or, get into an accident or something, the first thing that they would do is run and help them. Because that's what people do. People help each other. People work together to make things better. People don't fight. People don't look for ways to divide and be divisive and evil. That's not what people do. And it's important for us to remember that. It's important to keep in our minds that when we see someone or something that we think is wrong or different or anything, our first instinct should not be this person, this idea is evil. There's a very big difference between wrong and misguided and evil. But it's almost impossible to find people today who legitimately think that and legitimately look at a situation and say, these people aren't evil. They could be wrong, but they're not evil. They're not trying to kill me. They're not trying to destroy my way of life. These people just don't know what they're talking about, or whatever. Maybe they're right. Again, it's possible that you're wrong about something, or a few things, or a lot of things. It's possible. You have to understand that there is a possibility that you could be mistaken about something. If you think that you're perfect, then you're not going to be able to change. And if you can't change yourself, you definitely won't be able to change the world around you in a healthy and non-toxic way. And I don't know. I hope that at least something I said here is getting through to somebody out there. Just keep it in your mind. We don't live in this world to make conflict. And if you just keep on fighting conflicts with more and more fighting and conflict and fighting and infighting and everything, then we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere as people. We're not going to get anywhere as individuals. We're not going to get anywhere as ideals. There's going to be no way for us to advance ethically, morally, anything as a civilization or as individuals if everything becomes a battle. And yes, there are battles out there. But it's not everything. It's not everything in your life. And some battles, if they were framed as anything else, would be so easy. It would be so easy to get rights for individuals and things like that if it weren't framed as a war. If you weren't trying to, one-sidedly just plow through the other person's opinions and ideals, because it's so hard to get over for a person to look into themselves and think, maybe I've been seeing something the wrong way. And if you just go right at them and tell them that they're wrong and they're evil, then they're just going to bunch themselves up inside and not do anything. And that's where we are. That's where we are. Everybody is just putting their head down and their fists up, and they're not listening. And it's up to us as people to listen so that other people start listening. And, I know that it's really hard to do that, especially in the face of tragedies, in the face of people more powerful than us making decisions that we can't tolerate. But you're not going to get anywhere with just pure anger. There's righteous anger, but there's just anger is not going to work. And it's definitely not going to work if it just becomes us versus them, because you're going to find out that the us becomes me. And you're just going to be alone with your opinions. And it's not a good place to be. So, I don't know. I hope that just somewhere somebody is able to see this or listen to this and just think to themselves that the concept of community and the concept of brotherhood amongst men, and I'm not using that term on its own, men meaning humankind, should be the most important thing on our minds. And I know that there's people with different hierarchies of what they do need and can focus on. But if you don't live your life with the concept that there needs to be some sort of peace and understanding between people, then you're part of the problem, and you need to find some way to change that. Because there's going to be no way to have peace and understanding if you're always just fighting the enemy. So, just something to think about. Something that I've been thinking about. If you see other people, if you see another human being and say to yourself, that person is beneath me, that person is less than me because of what they think or how they act, what religion they are, what gender, race, anything, what part of the political spectrum they're on. And again, within reason, but that reason is very, very, very different than what we see today. If you see any person and look at them because of who they are, because of any of these things, and say that that person is less of a person than you, then you're the problem. You can't do that, and it's so hard to do. I know it's so hard to do when that person is the enemy, when that person is on the other side, when that person is the one that's oppressing you and the one that's doing everything wrong while you're doing everything right. But once you dehumanize somebody, then there's no way that any sort of peace can be achieved. And you see that all over the place. Once you do that, it's over. There's going to be no end. So just try in your lives, try to comport yourself with some sort of dignity towards your fellow man, and not just the people that agree with you. Also the people that have difference of opinions, and also the people that can be, viciously against you. Just realize that they are humans, and they deserve something from you. And, really, if more people were able to just get that through their heads, it would be so much easier for us as a species and as a country and as a community and as a family or anything to make progress. Thank you.